This is Breaking Down Security. Well, everybody, welcome back. This is Brian and Mr. Betcher.
Hello.
So, we've had a great couple of weeks, almost a month worth of very entertaining interviews. We had Pavel Kravchik on talking about content security policy. And we had the I2P gentleman, Jeff and Strad. A very interesting podcast on I2P, the anonymizing network. If you haven't listened to that one, I definitely would go back and listen to that one. They've got a lot of good work that they're doing there. So
yeah, the darknet.
Yeah,
as some say. I think it's called the darknet because you can't see it or you can't find things in it, that kind of thing.
Well, no, not really. It's
right?
More like
not necessarily the evil.
It's hidden. Yeah. I mean, I think the media is helping to perpetuate a lot of the darkness or the evilness of it. And as they said, there was a lot of good being done with it. And about the time we mentioned that there's a lot of good being done with it, there's financial malware now using I2P's network to, route its command and control systems. So, it's kind of, I get the point of freedom, but they're the freedom is to the nth degree, and at some point, you're stepping on everybody's toes. So, well, we're not here to talk about past interviews. We'll have them on again real soon to discuss more things. So this week we're going to get back to our roots. It's just going to be me and Mr. Betcher this week. We're talking about we're continuing our list of the SANS top 20 controls, security controls. We're going to tackle as many as we can in the short amount of time we have. We're going to start with number 13. Number 13
All right.
is Boundry Defense. Ooh, Boundary Defense. It sounds very military. Yeah. So the idea is to prevent, detect, or correct the flow of information across networks, across different trust levels. The idea of setting up a multi-layer network defense, the onion, if you will, the layers of network defense. So there are, in the SANS top 20 controls, and in the show notes, the PDF to the critical security controls is there, so you can follow along with us if you'd like. Number 13 has 14 controls in place. Maybe
14 subs.
Yeah, little sub pieces. And
all right.
Yeah, and they, of course, as you know, they break them down by category: quick wins, visibility or attribution, hygiene and configuration, or even advanced, which I would assume means going above and beyond. So for number 1, they mention denying communications to only known IP, which is basically what, Mr. Betcher, blacklisting?
Whitelist? Yeah, I mean, whitelist connectivity if you can is what it basically says, and also it mentions blacklisting. I mean, blacklisting's a hassle. We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
I mean, and this 13.1 is basically firewall 101.
Yep.
Right? I mean, deny inbound and outbound that you don't need. Don't let anything in that's not required, and block all outbound connectivity except where it's required for business.
Yeah, well, it's more than just denying IP addresses. It'd be denying everything, right? You'd want to start your firewall policy with deny all in and out, not just deny all in.
That's right. Make sure you follow firewall best practices. Deny all, and then only let, whitelist, only let what's needed through the firewall.
Yeah, and that can be complicated, though, because I know that depending on your network trust levels, inside of the trust, you may have, say, Active Directory servers for, say, you're still running Windows 2003 for some reason. You have to allow, for Active Directory processes, you have to allow all the dynamic ports from.
Right, but in a firewall ACL rule, it's by, by source, destination, port, and protocol. So you can get as granular as you want. So if you allow 1,000 ports, you can tone it down to just from or to a single source or a single protocol.
That's true.
That kind of
thing. least available. So you can allow from a specific IP address to a number of hosts or a network segment.
Yep. And you want to check also do your firewall audits regularly. I think we talked about that as
Oh,
well. I've seen or heard that a vendor will come in and, if you have a problem, he'll fix it for you if you don't have a network engineer on staff who actually can find the specific problem, and you go back and find out he's put an any rule in there. So you really got to watch that.
Yeah, and that's why you want to do your firewall rules on a regular basis, your audits on a regular basis.
Yep.
So the second the second sub point for control number 13 is you want to monitor and log your packets utilizing either an IDS or just a raw dump on your DMS.
Yep.
On your DMS. Dang it. That's an old military term, defense messaging system. DMZ, the demilitarized zone for, all intents and purposes, your DMZ networks.
Right, and it shows log these through a SIEM, so you can, or a log correlation engine, whatever. And for some reason they call this a quick win. I'm not so sure. Running or building a SIEM, maybe they assume that you have an IDS and you have a SIEM already, and you just need to connect the two. That could be a quick win, but yeah, the point is to log all the packets that are going in and out of your DMZ, and actually record those somewhere else and correlate them so you can be alerted.
So
for
the thing is,
nefarious activity.
The thing is, though, why are you wanting to monitor the traffic going in and out of your DMZ? How's that any different than any other network layer? Because they call it out specifically, right? DMZ.
Right. Yes. Well, your DMZ network is the most exposed because that's usually connected to the internet or an extranet.
True.
So you have these uncontrolled entities out there connecting to your DMZ. So it's a higher priority in this case to make sure you control traffic in and out than your internal networks, because in theory only authorized personnel are allowed into your internal networks. There's many more layers of control there, whereas on your DMZ, only certain entities should be allowed in, but sometimes the entire internet is connected, like to a web server or that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's going to start affecting your clients. Sometimes people put client portals on there. You've got your regular web services. You might have file upload capabilities, that kind of thing. So yeah, having something that's monitoring all of the traffic coming in and your server logs as well for any kind of traffic coming in or out, or people pinging your box. And you might actually put additional controls on there that are monitor. If you notice that somebody, say from a country, is using constant FTP traffic to try to, or SFTP or SSH, you can put in extra controls like deny hosts or fail to ban, so that if you do see that traffic coming in and you're monitoring that traffic, you can tell your server, okay, this IP's attempted to run 150 host names, block that one for so many hours, days, or forever even. So that's why it's good to have that log on your DMZ, because you can watch for those IP addresses to come in. So let's see. Number three, yes, is the use of lowering the chance of spoofed emails by implementing a sender policy framework.
Okay, this one's kind of weird. I've never heard of a sender policy framework before.
Yeah.
It has to do with who sends the email and who gets the email, like email spoofing, right? I don't know much about it, but I looked it up. Maybe we have a listener that knows about this more, but it was introduced, I know, in version 3 of the SANS Top 20. So I'm not...
So it's been around for a while.
I don't think it's that useful. I mean, both the sending SMTP server and the receiving both have to agree on this.
Well,
so
from what Wikipedia says, it's an authorized list of hosts. It's like a Etsy hosts file for who can send email, and there's a specially formatted text record inside of the DNS record that will allow for verification of that server. It looks like I would like to actually have somebody on who has used this. This would be something important that I think
I don't know, It may be. I don't see. I mean, it's may stop some spam from leaving your organization or coming into your organization,
Yeah.
but it seems like you'd have to have a very long list of SMTP servers to allow, um, uh, traffic in only from trusted servers. I don't see
Well,
how you could get. I mean, it'd be a huge
I think
list,
this
right?
I think this policy framework is only for your servers. It says, okay, this server is what it says it is. It's for non-repudiation purposes. Almost like a PGP key for your server. That
But both sides have to agree, right?
you know, I hadn't gone all the way
Yeah.
through this yet to find out.
Yeah, I read a little bit about it. I mean, there's a website on SFP. What did I
SPF.
see? OpenSFP.org. You can read a
You
lot
mean
about it.
SPF, or is it actually
S- SPF.
openspf.org? Okay,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
interesting.
Yeah.
.org. I will put that in the show notes. So right on. Okay. So all right. So that's something we'll table for another podcast, because that sounds like something that we need to understand and know about.
Yeah, so receiver side checking on that is the most important. And if you're only checking outbound, obviously, you can't send spam to other people, but then they can still send spam to you. So
Okay.
I don't see that much of a big deal on that one.
Yeah.
So
So all right. So we'll table that one for another time. So 13-4 and -5 both have to do with deploying the IDS and IPSs on your networks. Deploying them so that they make sense. Using IDS and 13.5 says should be deployed to complement IDS by blocking bad known signatures. I can't imagine why anybody in this day and age would want to deploy an IPS if they're a client-based company. You don't want to block anything that is a good. You don't want a false positive. So,
well, I think a lot of companies they want an IPS and they say, okay, here's a CapEx for my IPS, but they don't attach an OpEx to it as well. And what I mean by that is an operational expense. You need eyes on the IPS to monitor it constantly. It needs a lot of massaging. So if you just buy an IPS and expect it to turn it on and the blinky lights do their magic, I don't think that's a good idea. You have to have dedicated resources to it to keep it up and running properly and not block things that should let through and let through things that should be blocking. And it says avoid strictly signature-based detection on there, which is good. Choose ones with VM or sandbox systems. And we can talk a little bit more about those sort of a second-generation IPSs that seem to work really, really well. But again, malware authors tend to have IPSs in their own networks that they test their malware on. So they have legitimate licenses for IPSs because this is big bucks for them. They're going to know how to bypass these things as well. But it does take care of, the skiddies and stuff that are trying to infiltrate your networks. It's not gonna block the sophisticated attackers.
So let me ask you a question from a rules standpoint. Would you just say get rid of all of the IDS firewall definitions or IDS signatures and generate your own? Would that be the better way to do it, because your network better than, say, Snort or the SourceFire folks would?
No, not necessarily. I would keep the signatures that they have, and if any of them don't make sense for your environment that pop up, you'll obviously have to filter some of those out. But yeah, don't get rid of their signatures because they've got a lot of useful things in there. I've seen some come up that say, "Oh, you've got an employee running a game server on your network," and sure enough, game server going up. Like what's the one where you download the games from?
Steam.
Steam. Yeah, you're running a Steam on your box. So yeah, it detects little things like that you should be aware of. And of course, if Steam has a vulnerability, boom, that person could get popped. So need to get that uninstalled. Plus, I think Steam takes administrative rights as well. So yeah, of course, to install it, it would.
Yeah.
But no, IDS and IPS, two completely different things. IPS, yeah, you got to watch it, and it has VMs or sandbox. IDS, a little bit less maintenance, comes with signatures typically, and it's not inline. It'll be, looking at copies of all the traffic going through and alert you on signature base. And you should also test your IDS with vulnerability scanners. Run your vulnerability scanner, and your IDS should pick up those things that your vuln scanner is trying to exploit.
That's true. Yeah, you should get a ton of false positives, but you can filter those out by IP and just so they don't skew your reports later on. You can say, well, I was running a report on this day, so filter out this IP from as a known bad guy, as a known fake bad guy anyway. So yeah. That's good. That was a good discussion there. So 13.6, of course, is network design and implement your perimeters so that outgoing web, FTP, and shell traffic, secure shell traffic, has to pass through at least a proxy.
Yes. Proxy all outbound file transfers and shells. You should log all your TCP sessions, is what it's telling us. Blacklist and whitelist all your destinations. Again, blacklist not good, whitelist good in my opinion. And this whitelist destination goes back to Firewall 101. Deny all, and then if you need to have any destinations for business purposes, then get those inserted into your firewall. It says proxies can be used to encrypt all traffic. I don't really understand that.
Well, they have SSL accelerators or SSL proxies that will. Some companies like to put in wildcard type certs that allow you to decrypt the SSL traffic or to cache your SSL traffic for whatever reason.
I've heard of that. Yeah, I thought that was a different, topic altogether, where you would decrypt the traffic to log it or to inspect it and then re-encrypt it and send it on. I would, if I were sending like a file transfer, why wouldn't I encrypt it at the source rather than rely on my proxy to encrypt it? So that's the only question I have.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Plus, your encryption only works one way. I mean, it's got to be decrypted by something on the distant end. I would not even want to be using FTP in this day and age. It does still seem to have some legs in many organizations that I've worked with. I don't know why FTP is still a thing, but yeah. I mean, the only thing I could think of is having SSH outbound is just an invitation for people to do a reverse tunnel back through your firewall. So that may be the only reason to keep FTP, but I would use something like FTP over SSL that would at least encrypt the FTP traffic going from point A to point B. And that's not all that difficult to implement FTP over SSL. So let's see, 13.13-7 is set up two-factor auth on all your remote login access. So if you got a VPN, set up two-factor auth on it, either using, say, RSA, old school tokens. You could use the new hotness now is the Google Auth app on your phone. You could also, use a biometric fingerprint if you wanted to, or, depending on what your security level of your VPN is, just have a second auth. You got your password, and then, you need a token or something. I know that my company, we use two-factor auth almost exclusively. When we first started it, that was a thing that needed to be done. So it's not hard to implement, from what I understand. It's just it costs a little bit to set up initially, but we have a token on our mobile work phones, and it works pretty well. So
yeah, in my opinion, this is super important.
Oh yeah,
I think two-factor auth has to be implemented if you have any data that you want to protect. If you have a production environment, you need to require two-factor authentication to access that environment.
Oh yeah,
and make sure you turn off split tunneling.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And aggressive mode if you use, I think Cisco had aggressive mode. I don't know if the other VPN concentrators have that, but Basically, aggressive mode was to help save a transaction back and forth from client to host, and they found out that it's old and
supposed to speed it up by passing the hash basically in clear. So not a good idea. Networks are fast in this day and age, so that doesn't really buy you anything. Split tunneling is where you log into the VPN and you don't have any access on your home computer. Let's say you're using your home computer to connect. You don't have any access to your other networks like the internet while you're VPNing into production. That's real important for having your box not be a landing zone into production for things like malware. So if your box is compromised, then it can't communicate back to command and control while having access to the production environment.
Yeah,
so
plus
that's huge.
Plus, if you're following 13-6, you're going to be setting up a web proxy. So you could always make that an option to allow people to surf the web through your own web proxy. You're going to incur a bandwidth hit, but if you want people to be secure, at least have the ability to monitor the traffic on the work boxes. You don't want to be surfing the web through insecure means. A web proxy allows for scrubbing of data, looking for known bad things, getting rid of possible cross-site request forgery, cross-site scripting kind of stuff, web vulnerabilities. So if you are not, don't allow split tunneling and then allow the web proxy. So if somebody's connected on VPN, you can still get to your Facebooks and your, barnyard sagas or whatever it is that people like to play with. So, let's see. Let's skip down here to 13.9. Periodically scan back channel connections to the internet that bypass the DMZ, including unauthorized VPN connections and dual-homed hosts connected to enterprise network or wireless. Yes, I think we had this. Yeah. With a lot of our work devices that have both Ethernet and wireless. Having a wireless connection and having your Ethernet connection on at the same time can be a PCI violation, I believe, right?
You mean on the user's machine, or just having some sort of a device hooked up, like a rogue router hooked up to your work network?
Well, that could, one of many things. I mean, if you're sitting at your office and you've got your nice docking station with your Ethernet and you're using the Ethernet, but at the same time your wireless is connected to somebody else's AP, that could cause some problems. Yep. So you want to make sure that you have some kind of technology or software that will notice that you have an Ethernet connection and turn off the wireless, or notice you have a wireless connection and turn the Ethernet off.
Yeah. This 13.9, basically you need to scan for rogue connectivity.
Yep.
Look for any back channel connections, unauthorized sessions, and you do this by sniffing traffic and checking for the lack of your proxy server source or destination,
yep.
right? So if someone's not connecting to the proxy server, they're connecting to something else on the inside, you need to flag that.
Yep, I've done that.
If something is coming into the network, then it's not going through the proxy server, that needs to get flagged and alerted on.
Yep, I've had to scan for rogue wireless APs where I used to work for PCI requirements. I took my Kismet and my Aircrack NG and my Alpha and walked around with my Kali Linux looking for people who might have set up an Apple Airport Extreme or something like that. So it doesn't take much doing. I mean, you do it on a semi-regular basis, or you just start knowing what the wireless is around your area so that you can notice if there's any rogue wireless in the area. So it doesn't take a lot of work. They mention it as a configuration or a hygiene thing. That's just a thing you need to check on regularly. Run around and do a scan once in a while of the spaces you're living in.
Yep.
Let's see. 13.12. Minimize the impact of an attacker pivoting between compromised systems. Allow only DMZ systems to communicate with private network systems via application proxies or firewalls. Yeah, so you want to put firewalls between your network layers and route traffic accordingly.
Yep.
Yeah, that one's
it's pretty
self-explanatory.
That's right.
Yeah, so, or you know what? You don't even want your DMZ to talk to the private network segments. You just want everything in your private network segment to reach out. That's another option.
Three-tier network structure. I mean, we talked about this in Control 19.1, right?
Yep.
Kind of having the three-tier. It's kind of a rehash of that.
Yep.
But still pretty important if you can.
Yep. So 13.13, to help identify covert channels exfiltrating data through the firewall, configure firewall session tracking mechanisms in many firewall to identify sessions that last an unusually long time given the organization and firewall device. So unusually long time. What are they talking, like SSL tunnels or?
Any type of connection lasting a really long time. Maybe you can do stats on it or something, but this could be a sign of data exfil.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to alert on that or look at the longest session going on, find out what that is.
Yeah, so I guess when you're doing malicious traffic analysis, if you have a botnet on your network, the first thing they do is they go out either port 80 or 443, probably 443. So if you notice that one box has had a connection running has had a connection for like 2.5 hours, you definitely want to look at that and see what that person is doing, what that person is going to at least, and maybe you've got an infestation of bugs and you don't realize it.
Yeah, and again, many malware authors probably know about this, so they're not going to have any long-term sessions unless they're feeling really confident and they're passing a lot of data through.
Yeah. So the last one is 13.14. It says deploy NetFlow collection and analysis to DMZ network flows to detect anomalous activity. That kind of goes hand in hand with some of the other ones we've talked about, making sure that you have a known good, what's, the proper traffic going over your network, that you're not noticing anything going between servers, large file transfers perhaps that are unauthorized or happening at, say, 2 a.m. that shouldn't be, that, or on weekends that aren't part of your backups. So one of the things I wanted to touch on number 13 before we moved on was the effectiveness metrics, talking about how to test the effectiveness of your number 13 critical security controls. They mention certain metrics about how long it takes to apply configuration changes, blocking unauthorized traffic. Number 4, they said, I guess the longer it takes to block that kind of stuff, the more damage can be done. As we've seen with a lot of the data breaches, they took them, a year or better to block the offending traffic.
Yeah, we mentioned all these metrics, I think, in our first cast about these critical controls. It's definitely worth a look because if you can measure yourself, your company, your IT department on these controls, that way you have a baseline and just keep improving. These metrics are gold.
Yep. Yeah, they, automation metrics are talking about what percentage of your remote hosts are not managed using the same security standards as internal. So if you have different business units, they're saying, they're wanting to know if you have a across-the-board kind of management standard for your security stuff. They ask about what percentage of your internal systems are on VLANs that are segmented properly with access control lists. Let's see, what percentage of the remote access users don't use a two-factor auth? I can't imagine how you would have people who don't have two-factor auth running a VM or a VPN. If your VPN connects directly to production systems, I would definitely put a second factor on that.
Yeah, all good stuff.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of good information on step 13. I like that. So, Control 12. Control 12 is all about controlled use of administrative privileges. Now, if that sounds familiar, we did talk about that on the first podcast where we talked about one of the quick wins, where 12-1 is minimizing the administrative privileges and only using admin accounts when required. I think that's something that good companies have figured out, where you have the admins use the user account and then either sudo to root or their admin accounts, or on Windows they have a regular account and then a user.admin account or something like that.
Right. You should always audit admin use.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
Everywhere. Alert when anomalies occur. Some things you could do is alert on any changes outside of your change window if you have a definite change window. Okay, if you've got a change window from, say, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. and anything happens outside of that, it needs to have an alert.
Oh, yeah.
Any password changes on admin accounts. You don't have to alert the security team necessarily on password changes to admin accounts, but alert the admin whose password was changed. That way he knows if anybody's snooping around on his account and gaining access to his stuff.
Yeah, and we get that where I work. We have email alerts when SSH keys have been changed. We get an alert that says, hey, this hash is different than what it used to be, almost like file integrity. And then
Nice.
One or two people are always piping up going, hey, who did this? And it always happens within like 4 or 5 minutes. So, and then one guy will pipe up, oh yeah, my bad, I'm sorry, I did this, and then we admonish him and say, use the change policy, that has been established, because you can't just go and be a maverick in this case with that. So a lot of these are quick wins on 12. You've got 12-2, using automated tools to inventory administrative accounts. That's no mean feat if you've got a lot of systems. Either you need to have a centralized repository where all of your accounts come from, like Active Directory. In Linux, it's not so simple unless you have some kind of unified authentication procedure using, say, LDAP or AD. You're stuck having to go to each individual box and doing an accounting on the usernames, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, you may be able to script it if you don't have
true.
other tools that can do that in Linux. It's a little harder in Windows, but I did find this website that's really cool. It's called 4sysops.com, the number 4 sysops.com, and it has, I was just amazed at how much information it has for sysadmins, particularly Windows sysadmins. It's got a list of the best free Windows admin tools there. We'll put a link in the show notes. This one called AD Manager Plus and another AD Info. Those can be used to automate inventory of all your admin accounts. So
you said show.
Yeah.
You said show nuts. I'm sorry. I'm 12 years old. I'm sorry. No. That's actually wow. Where have you been all my life, man? These are some great sites you've been pulling up here. Dang.
Yeah. Well, it's the Google, man.
Oh man.
Yeah. Make sure your admin privileges are authorized, by the line of business.
Yep.
And that's pretty much all I have to say about inventory. 12.2.
Yep.
Go check out that website. It's got a lot of cool stuff in it.
Yeah,
definitely a lot of free tools you can use to automate this particular control.
Yep. So 12.3 is one that's been hammered into everybody's head since the late aughts. Use administrative passwords should be complex, numbers, letters, upper, number special, Unicode, dogs, WYSIWYG, text fonts, and what have you.
I mean, forget about admin accounts for a minute. Just all passwords need to have complex or long passwords. I mean, we talked about this on our very first podcast ever.
It's true.
So if you want to know more information about that, I'm sure it's pretty easy to find.
Yep.
And at some point, we'll have to index our episodes on the website, by topic or whatever.
True.
So they'll be easier to find. Since we keep losing count regularly, we have to start over at the beginning of the year with number 1.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to keep track, but one of these days when we get enough episodes, we'll index them. How about that?
Yeah, there we go. So the passphrases, I've actually reversed myself. I was not a fan of password lockers. I am now a fan of password lockers. The only problem is the password locker password is going to be a lot simpler than, say, the 40-character password I just put onto my new Apple ID because I lost the old Apple ID. God. Oh, it makes me angry. That was a 9-year-old Apple ID, and I can't figure out the password for it. And I don't have the recovery key, because guess where I put the recovery key? Inside of my password locker, and my password locker got corrupted, so I've lost like 50 passwords. Anyway, thank you, KeyPass. 12.4.
I keep mine on a coffee can under the bed. Pretty grizzled.
I keep them in my wallet on a Post-it note. So 12.4. Before deploying any new devices in a networked environment, change your default passwords. Duh. I mean, how many times have you seen, people getting owned because they had the original router password, Cisco basically, or whatever.
Yeah, or what's the famous Oracle one with the guy's dog? I forget.
Oh yeah.
But anyway,
famous one.
I'd remember it if I had to, right?
Yeah.
If I were trying to break into something. But this is kind of redundant, and we'll talk about this in control number 3 when we get to it, which is secure configurations.
Yep.
Go figure. And it's very important, and it's worth SANS bringing this up a second time. It's the easiest way for hackers to elevate their privileges.
Yeah.
Bar none.
Yeah. So
just check. That's the first thing they do is they find an application, they Google default passwords for such and such device, and they try them.
That's right. Yep. So I guess at this part of the podcast, we've actually reached the password section. It seems like every framework has a section on passwords. So 12.3, 12.4, 12.5, 12.6 are all about passwords, ensuring your accounts have long and difficult to guess passwords. Passwords should be hashed or encrypted in storage. 12.6 is all about hashing your passwords and making sure your passwords are all good to go. 12.5 is all about making long and difficult to guess passwords. This is all policy-based stuff, isn't it?
Well, yeah, this is 12.5 is service account passwords, right? So again, same as any password, but in Linux, all service accounts should not be accessible directly if possible.
That's true. No login, no interactive login. Set an Etsy password. Set your shell to bin no login, sbin no login, or bin false, or whatever.
Yeah, and remember, these are for service accounts. So if you have a service account, set it to no password.
That's right.
Okay, and then you log in with your own account, and then switch user or sudo su over to the service account.
Yep.
Now, one thing I did find is in Windows you can do run as. So you just type in a command line run as /profile/user :machine / say administrator, and then whatever program you want to run. You do that from a command prompt, so you can log in as your own user and then run as that particular user.
Yep.
So, and make sudo in Linux require a password.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and you want to be granular with your sudo as well. Give people sudo access, but only to what they need to use to do work. Don't give them full sudo admin capabilities. You don't want them to be able to run anything once they get root capability. So
exactly, you can get as granular as you want in the sudo file there. Have them do sudo su this particular account, and that's all they can run.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you don't go directly. You don't need them to sudo directly to root. You could have them sudo to, mail if they wanted to run. Be the mail admin if you're using postfix or what have you. Make sure you're auditing that as well on a regular basis to make sure that it still makes sense. We talked about that previously, making sure that people's roles make sense. 12.7, utilizing access control lists to ensure administrative accounts are used only for system admin and not for reading email. Yeah. I would go so far as to almost make it so that you could only do administrative things on the administrative account. You couldn't. I don't know. Can you lock it down so you can install software as an admin? I mean, that seems kind of counterintuitive. But if you're a user and you're going break.admin, should I be able to install VLC player, or should I be able to install uTorrent, which I found out is now a Bitcoin mining rig?
Well, it depends on your organization, right? This control, what are we on? 12.7.
Yeah.
Basically. Your admin account should only be used for admin activities, like you said. Don't surf the web with an admin account. You don't read emails with your admin account. Okay? You can test for this by scanning for processes periodically for systems running with elevated privileges, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, there's some things that won't even run as a root user, so you have to run them in as a non-root user. So
Or they give you a warning or something.
yeah, they warn you to not run as a root. I think not Tripwire, damn it, Wireshark tells you not to run necessarily as root.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. Plus, if you start Apache, it runs as root only to drop down, to drop process down to www, the user. Again, that could also be a process thing. Just make sure that you have a process, or not a process, a policy that says, if you're running as an admin, you're not going to be checking your email. You're not going to be surfing the web doing that. You're going to have some people crying foul, obviously, because if they're troubleshooting something, they're going to go directly as root because they want to be able to solve the problem without worrying about whether or not they need an escalation of privileges. But the first time that they get too comfortable using their email and they download and click on an attachment that, or they download something, or they run a JavaScript in a browser that beefs them up, gives them a hot beef injection, and their system is owned, then they're going to be, much to their chagrin, they'll remember that in the future. So,
Yep.
12.8, through policy and user awareness require. Well, here's more password stuff. Establish unique different passwords for administrative and non-administrative accounts. Well, that seems kind of a duh thing.
Well, it basically says you need unique accounts for admins, right? Not just the administrator account. So separate administrative accounts from the administrator account. Separate root accounts from the root account. And only use those administrator or root accounts in emergency situations. Yeah. So you can have belong to the administrator group, but don't ever go in there as administrator.
Yeah. So create a super user account and a user account, and then the admins should use the super user account only when in doing administrative tasks, and then only use the root account if all else fails, like the nuclear option in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I would make sure that is properly documented and stuck somewhere where only one or two people know what the actual admin password, the super root password is, because that's important to restrict access to that, so not just everybody can get it. Even other admins, maybe some admins have the ability to do administrative tasks on a system, but they don't necessarily need super root. So, okay, 12.9, passwords reused within a time frame of 6 months. Yeah, okay, I guess. I mean, you just want to limit password reuse. So you don't want to let somebody just that's setting password history, password reuse. So usually you have a history of 24. Every 90 days you change the password. You got all these kinds of password policies where you can't change a password after you've set it initially for 7 days. Those are all good things.
It says don't SANS recommends 6 months and no reuse, but I kind of say don't reuse them. I mean, don't we have hash lists floating around and password lists that you can use to crack passwords faster?
Yeah.
So don't reuse passwords.
Well, plus with the use of password lockers that will generate a password for you, you should be good to go if you've set a 25 character password inside your password locker. You shouldn't ever have to reset. That also keeps people from just adding a 1 to the end of the password, because I've seen that where bad guys will actually they know what the password is, but if they haven't they'll increment it, so they'll put password 1, password 2, password 3, password 4 down the line. Or if they know that the password has a month in it, they'll go 0102 all the way to 12 or whatever. So the password lists can get long and complicated, but it doesn't take much to guess a password if somebody just adds a 2 to the end when they're ready. So let's see. 12.10, configuring systems to issue log entry and alert when an account is added or removed. Well, that's good. That's setting up auditing for user creation. That should let people know that if a person has added a user, that not only do you know who the new user's name is, but who actually did the adding in the first place, which is why you would want you'd want an administrative account, but not super user. So you could say, Bob.admin did it. So, okay, so Bob added a new user called Jim, that kind of thing.
Yeah, this one says log on admin account addition or removal. I would go a little bit further than that. I would issue an alert on this condition, because how often do you create admin accounts? So I would definitely alert the admin if an admin account is created. I'd log on any account creation, but I would alert on an admin account. It should rarely happen, and there should be an audit trail for that.
Well, that would be one of those. That would be one of those general things. Like you'd want to have a mailbox that would send it out to all the system admins, not just one guy. Because if I was a bad admin and I wanted to set up more users to do nefarious stuff with, I wouldn't. If I'm sending the email back to myself, I'm going to be the only one to get the alert. I'll just click delete. So if you send it to admins@yourjob.com. 7 or 8 different people are going to get it, including maybe the head of IT, the information security guy, and he's going to be like, well, why was this added? And that will help reduce the, I don't know, what's the word I'm trying to figure out here? It increases accountability.
The inside actor?
Yeah, the inside actor, the inside threat. It increases accountability for all the people involved.
Now you're thinking, man.
I know, right?
Jeez, look at that. Yeah. Check out the big brain.
Easy, buddy. Don't patronize me. That hurts my feelings. So yeah, and that's the whole visibility and attribution. You want to know who's doing what, and that it's a big red flag. So yeah. 1211 configure systems issue an unsuccessful login. Now wait a minute, didn't we hear this from Michael Goff? He's like, they got 100 unsuccessful logins, but then they got the successful login.
Yeah. It says alert on all unsuccessful login attempts. I think that goes a bit too far. Everybody mistypes their passwords every now and then. You don't want to alert everyone when somebody mistypes their passwords. That's too many alerts coming through. Mm-hmm. You may want to say alert on 10. I mean, isn't your password going to lock anyway? Or your account going to lock if you try it too many times?
Well, I imagine
I don't really see the value in this too much.
Yeah, after 5 alerts, just say the account's been locked out, and that.
Now you can alert on that lock.
Yeah,
that would be good.
Yeah. 1212 use multi-factor auth for all administrative access, which makes sense. I mean, you could use one-time passwords, RSA tokens if you wanted to authenticate as a to become a super user.
Yeah.
That's entirely possible. I just saw an article recently about how to use your Google Auth tokens to be able to become pseudo in this case to authenticate. That's always possible. 1213 using certificates to enable multi-factor certificate-based authentication and ensure the private keys are stored using passwords that are stored in trusted secure hardware tokens. Okay. I mean,
I don't understand that one too much. Basically, proper storage of certificates for multi-factor.
Yeah, if you're going to do two-factor auth, make sure that you're storing those two-factor auth certs securely, and that you're, doing the auditing and storage of that as well to make sure it's secure. 1214 block access to machines for authenticator level accounts. Yeah, so you shouldn't be able to. That's just don't log in directly as root.
Yeah, block remote access to admin. Yeah. So again, we talked about that. Right?
Yeah, and you would use either say a trusted host to gain access to certain systems, or you don't SSH directly as root. You would log in as yourself and then sudo to whatever user you needed to log into. Yeah, they mentioned the run as on Windows there, so users should have their own administrative accounts and enter password each time it's different. I would also suggest that your sudo, if you're using sudo or you're using run as, find a way to make sure that expires after so many minutes, or maybe after you run that initial command. You don't want your sudo access, because if you don't log out and somebody logs in and you're in that window where you can still run sudo commands, somebody could get on your box and run elevated privileges as you.
Make sure your session expires with no activity, say after 5-10 minutes,
Yeah.
whatever.
Make sure you kill your connection if you're SSH'd in with escalated privileges. That would be good. So a lot of Control 12 is about making sure the various systems report inventories, that they report on new administrative accounts. These are all good if you are trying to set up your security program and you want to make sure that you're doing a good job. The 11 questions under the effectiveness metrics, they'd be a quick yes or no, or you can time it in minutes on how long it takes for administrators to be notified that they've been granted super user permissions. That's always a good thing. Effective use of email for notification is going to be important for that too. Where are we at right now on time? I think we're well over, aren't we? Whoo, 50 minutes, son. I think we only got 2 done. All right.
Amazing.
Well, we had a lot to talk about. So, well, that was number 12 and number 13 this week for breaking down security's SANS top 20 critical security controls. We've still got 1 through 11. It's going to get more interesting as we get along, I'm sure. So, what was your as we like to do with these things, what was your takeaway today? That you what did you learn with regard to this, Mr. Betcher?
Well, one thing I like about this SANS critical controls document is that they suggest some effectiveness tests. So, if you install a random service on a random machine, make sure that you're alerted within 24 hours of it, that kind of thing. Those are really good ways to test the effectiveness of your security program by doing these effectiveness tests. I can't talk today. So try implementing some of these effectiveness tests in your organization.
Yeah, and if you've got people who are, your business analysts would jump at the chance to help you, with your automation metrics or your effectiveness metrics. So if you can get more people in, more monkeys, more minions, if you will, to help you with your security processes. Business analysts just love going over metrics and helping to make things more efficient. So I would engage some of them if you have, help make them part of your security process, because I'm sure they would enjoy, understanding how their job can be used to help the company run more efficiently. That goes along with more process improvement too. If you put something out there and it takes, say, 2 days to find out you're getting a new admin account added, then they'll help you figure out where your shortcomings were and help maybe build a more effective process or a policy even for that. So I think my takeaway, I like the questions that they give you at the end of each section, because if you're setting up something, you may not know the questions that you need to ask. And those are really good questions that you can ask to make sure that you at least have a baseline on how to do something, to make sure that you're implementing it correctly. How many unauthorized elevated accounts are currently configured in the organization? Okay, that, if you've never done this before, those might be questions where you'd be like, I don't even know how I can measure this thing. So using the automation metrics or using the effectiveness metrics, you can know that you're doing a good job by knowing what answers to ask. So it's like a FAQ for each section, and I like that.
Yeah, it has a lot of good information, not just in the controls themselves, but how to measure the effectiveness of the controls that you implement. So good stuff there.
Yeah, and even if you don't use the critical security controls, you could open up the PDF, go to section 12, ask these questions of your current system, and go, okay, well, maybe we do need to implement that. Or maybe
how long does it take for administrators to be notified about user accounts being added to super user groups?
Wait,
infinity.
You mean they should get notified? Oh, that's a thing? Okay, well, yeah, maybe we should do that. Oh, yeah, strong passwords, duh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so you can go from eternal to, say, 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big advantage there.
Yeah, and, you can also use the critical security controls for management to go, okay, we answered these 11 questions, and we're not doing very well according to, industry guidelines, or, we think we could do better. And, that's just a thing you could, use to help management for OpEx, or for, buying a brand new shiny toy that you want to play with. So.
All right.
Excellent. All right. So, Mr. Betcher, you can be found where on Twitter?
Betcher Pwned.
Betcher Pwned. That's right. And I can be found at Brian Brake. We have a Facebook fan page, Breaking Down, facebook.com/BreakingDownSec, BRAKEING, downsec. We're on LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn group. I still think we only have about 2 people on our LinkedIn group. Maybe we have 3. I'm not sure. iTunes. We love feedback on iTunes. iTunes would love feedback on iTunes for our podcast, because it seems to be a ghost town over there. So if you enjoy the podcast, please feel free to hit us up on iTunes. Send us a review. Just say, hey, Brian sucks. You don't have to put an initial or anything, because we're both Brian Brake, Brian Betcher, if that's the case. So let's see what else. Hashtag BreakSec on Twitter if you want to continue conversing with us about the SANS security controls. Let's see. What else?
Yeah, feel free to hit us up on any of those mediums if you have questions. We like to have questions. I know I've answered some questions on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, if you've got any questions for us, feel free. We're happy to answer.
Yeah, podcast ideas. Email, bds.podcast@gmail.com. You can hit us up on there too. We do have several ideas in the can that we would like to look at. We're looking at maybe a Metasploit podcast in the future. Also one on SSL. We want to talk about some of the different facets and functions of SSL to make it, make your websites as secure as possible. That's something we're looking at, finding somebody. So if you're big on OpenSSL, please hit us up, because we'd love to talk about SSL with you, certificate pinning, HSTS, all that good stuff. That was it for the week. Mr. Betcher, you have a good one, and all of our listeners have a great week, and we'll see y'all soon.
Bye-bye. See you next time.